I don't want to I don't want to lose your time. افتحي الايباد لغايه لما I will start talking. I don't want to lose much of your time, so I will start talking until they start fixing the video thing.
Okay, no worries. We are all listening to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Reem. It's always a pleasure to be among a lot of friends that I really cherish and a lot of colleagues that I do cherish. And I'm always happy to be with the EMANES annual conference. Of course, the topic today is the regenerative economies. So, colleagues, esteemed scholars, distinguished colleagues, regeneration begins not with resources, but with imagination. The capacity to envision economies that restore rather than extract, that renew rather than deplete, that build resilience rather than merely optimize efficiency. From Cairo, it's my great pleasure to join you in Barcelona, this magnificent Mediterranean crossroads, to translate imagination into architecture. The question before us has moved from the margins of development discourse to its very center. How do economies regenerate? Not merely sustain, not simply grow, but renew themselves in ways that restore what was depleted and strengthen what was fragile. It is the defining challenge of our generation. Now you see me.
Fantastic. Now we see you. Good to see you.
Lovely seeing you. The convergence of climate pressures, demographic shifts, technological disruption, and geopolitical realignment demands more than incremental adjustment. It requires us to reimagine the very architecture of economic planning. For decades, development policy operated on a fundamental assumption that economies could expand indefinitely while environmental and social systems absorbed the consequences. Sustainability emerged as a corrective, a framework for minimizing harm, for doing less damage. But sustainability, however necessary, is insufficient. Regeneration represents a deeper ambition. It is a transformation in how we conceive the relationship between economic activity and the systems that support it. We should recognize that fragmented approaches produce fragmented results. Regenerative economics demands that we design systems, not silos. Egypt's reform journey, let me give you an example about Egypt's reform journey from stabilization to regeneration. Egypt's experience over the past decade offers insights into how regenerative principles can be embedded within national economic planning. Our journey has not been linear, nor has it been without difficulties. It demonstrates what becomes possible when reform is conceived as coherent architecture rather than isolated intervention. In 2016, Egypt initiated a comprehensive economic reform program, and in 2021, we complemented stabilization with a structural adjustment reform program, reimagining the role of the state and creating space for private investment. In October 2022, for the first time, we had the ownership state policy. This emerged from an extensive dialogue with the private sector. It is not a regulatory instrument, but a statement of institutional clarity, where the state should intervene, where the state should withdraw, and where the state should partner with. The results speak in multiple dimensions. By 2024, private financing exceeded public investment in key sectors for the first time. More than 480 million Egyptians now hold transactional accounts, where a decade ago, financial inclusion remained a distant aspiration. But numbers alone do not capture regeneration. What matters is whether growth restores or depletes, whether it concentrates or distributes, whether it builds capacity or it only extracts value. This is where Egypt offers 3 lessons that may resonate beyond our borders. The first lesson is that regeneration must be territorial. Economic planning that concentrates in capital while peripheries language is not regenerative. It is extractive by another name. Egypt Decent Life Initiative that was adopted in 2021 reached almost 4,580 villages across our nation through integrated intervention that addresses infrastructure, services, and economic opportunities simultaneously. The Green Villages program, embedded within the Decent Life, exemplifies territorial regeneration. It responds to real-time environmental challenges while building community capacity to manage land and water resources for the long term. Our 4th generation cities, 17 new urban centers designed with sustainability encoded in their infrastructure, represent another dimension of territorial planning. These are designed communities, incorporated renewable energy, smart transportation, and green spaces as founding principles rather than afterthoughts. The second lesson is that regeneration must be inclusive by design. Between 2016 and 2024, Egypt achieved almost a 295 increase in the financial inclusion rate of women. Today, more than 23 million Egyptian women hold transaction accounts. We have directed over $4.5 billion in developmental financing to gender equality initiatives, reaching more than 27 million women and girls. Our Gender Development Index now stands at 0.895, exceeding the regional average. These figures represent something deeper than access. They represent agency. When rural women entrepreneurs connect to digital platforms, when women lead in fintech and technology sectors, the regenerative effect multiplies through families, through communities, and also through markets. Inclusion is not a social program adjacent to economic policy. It is the mechanism through which regeneration achieves scale. Our third lesson is that regeneration requires institutional coherence. Monetary, fiscal, and structural policies achieve credibility only when they are aligned together. Reforms anchored in a coherent framework yield stability that markets can really trust and investors can build upon. Egypt issued the region's first sovereign green bond and established a sovereign sustainable financing framework, mobilizing multi-source finance across water, food, and energy priorities. These instruments demonstrate that integration and climate resilience are mutually reinforcing. The architecture of trust extends from financial markets to environmental stewardship. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the Mediterranean has always been more than geography. It has been a system of exchange, a cradle of civilization, a bridge between continents. Today, it stands as a natural laboratory for testing whether regenerative principles can guide regional integration. Egypt views its economic and developmental future as deeply interconnected with this region and with the African continent. We also participate actively in the African Continental Free Trade Area. We work to facilitate integration through COMESA and the African Union. Our industrial zones, logistic corridors, and infrastructure investments are designed not merely for domestic mobility, but for regional throughput. Yet financial integration in our region remains incomplete. Banking systems are developed, but cross-border instruments remain limited. Regulatory approaches diverge where they might converge. This is not a story of deficiencies, but it is a story of great potential. The academic and policy sessions that follow will deepen our understanding of these challenges. The research presented over the 3 days will test assumptions, challenge orthodoxies, and eliminate pathways we have not yet considered. But let me offer a concluding thought on what regenerative economics ultimately demand of us. It demands that we measure what matters. Traditional economic indicators tell only part of the story. We must consider how technology adoption affects income distribution, how environmental performance influences economic resilience, and how the quality of our institutions determines whether growth concentrates or regenerates. It demands that we design for integration. The financing gap for sustainable development in most of the developing countries have been estimated at around 3.9 trillion US dollars. This will not be closed through fragmented initiatives. It requires coordinated actions that treats economic, social, and environmental objectives as a unified system. Egypt offers not a model to be replicated, but an experience that may be examined. Our reforms demonstrate that regeneration is possible when planning is coherent, when inclusion is intentional, and when institutions earn the trust of those they serve. We remain committed to sharing these lessons and also to learning from your experiences and your lessons. Confidence is the first currency of regeneration. If we preserve it through clarity, through cooperation, through courage, investment will flow, capacity will multiply, and the Mediterranean will not only connect continents, but it will also connect our future. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for having me once again with this very distinguished audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hala. This very inspiring, and I'm very happy to hear the first word in your speech, which is regeneration requires imagination, and imagination requires creativity, and creativity is one of the pillars of brain capital and brain economy, in which we are trying really to push forward in our economies and elsewhere. And I think without, I would say, rethinking our role or the role of our brain in our societies, it's very difficult to, I would say, to reach this reimagined, regenerative approach for our economies. And thank you for mentioning the 3 pillars. And I completely agree with you, because, of course, regeneration is not only about a biological system that we would like to apply to our economies, but we need to just think regeneration in our economies. And this is a different thing, because you mentioned territoriality, so territorial, it must be, so that's the basis. Inclusiveness, extremely important, including all the communities. And then institutional quality and coherence. And this is essential, because with these 3, we can reach the confidence and trust. And this is how, I would say, investment flows to our economies. And this is how financial integration becomes a lever for regeneration, rather than, as we see nowadays, a huge gap because of our fragmented approaches that we have cherished, in fact, for many years, because each one is under his own frame and trying really to find the solution by themselves. But then working collectively, and this is what I was saying at the beginning today, we need to work collectively, all disciplines together, to try to find these answers that you mentioned. So I have one question to you. You said regeneration needs measurement, a measurement of what matters. So what this means in practice. Does it mean that, for example, we could track all the metrics and then we can act on them instantly through policy innovation? So how policy innovation would help, or I would say would be key into the change that we would like to aspire in terms of regeneration? So this is my first question. So of course, matrix and policy innovation. So this is one. And two, how all of this would lead us to a post-SDG beyond 2030.
Thank you very much, Reem. It's always, as I mentioned, it's always a pleasure to join you here. Well, first, we need to measure policies. We need to have a sort. I always say we cannot plan if we cannot measure, if we cannot see the impact of what we plan. In order to plan properly, you need a proper measurement system that measures the impact of what you develop. Maybe because Egypt is more of a public, used to be a public investment rather than a private investment state. We do a lot of public investment in our development policies, and for the first time, as I mentioned, private investment exceeded, but a good part of what we measure is we measure through the public investment that we do. So having a sort of a lab to measure all your policies and the impact of what you invest is very important. When we decided to make the Haya Karima initiative, the Decent Life initiative, which is one of the biggest developmental projects worldwide, for the first time, we had the multi-dimensional poverty index. We have the poverty map across Egypt, but for the first time, we had the multi-dimensional poverty index that measures the quality of service, the quality of education, the quality of the sanitation, the quality of water, people who receive water, quality of healthcare that people receive. For the first time, we had this index. And from this index, we started developing the Decent Life initiative. So we started pouring investment in different villages that we need to upgrade the poverty index in these villages. So you need to innovate different measures. You need to have a proper statistics department or statistics agencies that do this frequent measurement, and you need to have an impact lab that measures the impact of this investment on different areas and different sectors. The issue of the post-SDGs. I know the SDGs, most of the, as when we were in the UN in 2023, I don't know the figures now, but Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that only 17% of the SDGs have been achieved, 54 have been off track, and I don't know, 30-something were deteriorated. I think when we need to put a sort of indicators or aspirations, we need to categorize countries. We cannot have one-size-fits-all development indicators. We need to categorize countries according to their development standards, and accordingly put, I know that the SDGs were ambitious in order to make people aspire and reach the potential of their economies and societies. But you cannot put, when you put extremely high aspirations, you feel you're off track. You do not belong to this community, you know? So you need to divide countries into at least 3 categories, and you start putting the development indicators. You need to develop 2 important things: statistics department inside different countries, because what we used to vary is, and we used to suffer from, is that you cannot compare the statistics of one country to another country, because, for example, when I have my indicators in year 2024, other countries in Africa had their indicators in the recent indicators in 2021. So comparing these indicators were not equivalent. You cannot compare 2023 with 2021, or there are some indicators that they could not even reach or have any type of indicators on. So you need to develop statistics department. These are the cornerstone of development. You need proper statistic department, and you need proper governance. You cannot do that. Data, statistics, and proper governance in order to ensure that you have proper institutions that help you reach your potential. I think if the world decided on the post-2023 on the 3 categories of countries and have to build proper statistics department in these countries and proper governance, I think with the artificial intelligence and with the technology, I think most of us need proper governance for technology, ethics, because technology will affect your health sectors. What about the privacy of data? So you need to regulate, and you need proper governance of, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence and technology.
Thank you very much, Hala. To put also the focus on regulation, obviously with innovation, we need to have appropriate regulation and regulatory framework. And of course, statistics are a cornerstone. We need to measure to be able to assess impact and also to design policies. And the better data quality we have, obviously we can do much more. And this is, we are all struggling to have good data, especially in our region. And hope there is a lot of work to be done in that space. So thank you very much. I don't want to hold you further. That was great, like always, and hopefully to see you in Egypt. I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Maybe in Barcelona. Why don't you want me to come to Barcelona?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted you to come to Barcelona this week, but hopefully next year.
Yeah, hopefully next year.
Yeah, so I'll see you certainly in Cairo. I'll be there.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry
Bye.
Christmas
Thank you very
and Happy
much.
New Year for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.